appreciate it, because I'm serious. I know you could be so many other places. I promise you I'm going to make it worthwhile for you. I am Jeff Castleman, and I'm sort of a futurist hobbyist. I'd like to think about pushing the boundaries of the real estate industry, in particular the commercial side of the real estate industry, but a lot of what I'll talk about will apply to not just commercial real estate, but other facets of the industry, as well as a much broader context. And so welcome to the exponential future of commercial real estate. I'm going to cover a lot of stuff. Since it's a small group, let's make it intimate and make it a conversation. I'm sure you'll have questions. I know some of it will leave you in disbelief. That's a completely normal reaction to this stuff. And then maybe we'll save some time to talk about it together. Sound like a plan?
Sure.
All right, good. So that's me. That's when I had hair. I work at Newmark Grubb Knight Frank. Hopefully you know that company. I'm also the new SIOR Global President. I'm really excited about that. I own an energy company. I've been doing this about 30 years. I speak, I write, I travel. I mentor and participate on the boards of some tech startups, particularly those that point their product or service towards the real estate world. I have traveled extensively around the world looking at first at smart buildings, only to have stumbled upon smart cities. And so that's a different presentation than today, but I can talk a lot about that. It's led me to this point, sort of a thought leadership. It's cool to talk about, it's fun, but how do you make money doing it, right? At the end of the day, for me anyways, if there's an ROI, I'm interested. Otherwise, a lot of it's just sort of chatter. So hopefully that background helps you understand how I got to be up here sharing my afternoon with all of you. And I'm very excited, like I said, to do that. Here's what we're going to talk about. A lot of the material is more in the form of me being a messenger of it. It's not necessarily original content. It really belongs to some really smart people like Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis. Does anybody, I know, John, you know Ray Kurzweil because he came and spoke at SIOR several years ago. Does anybody here know who Ray Kurzweil is or Peter Diamandis? They're people you're going to want to Google or get a hold of the presentation. I've already sort of hyperlinked it to data about those guys. Much of this comes from spending a few days at one of their think tanks earlier this year. And they walk through sort of the progression that I will now present to you. Moore's Law, first wave of disruption, second wave of disruption, sort of a convergence of it all. Well, what could go wrong? Are there X factors that nobody can predict? Of course there are. And then I'll really get to the meat of commercial real estate and where the impacts and the opportunities are. We'll do some Q&A. I'm not going to go through the addendum that's on here, but if you do get a hold of the presentation, what you'll find are terminology, companies to watch, reading list, stuff that if you're interested in going further with the material, it's all built in here for you, okay? So I talked about Peter. Peter's the founder of X Prize. He sort of single-handedly, through the founding of X Prize, ushered in this era that's upon us of private space travel, both for exploration, government, science, and also for tourism. He co-founded Singularity University with Ray Kurzweil. He's a doctor. He's also been at Harvard and MIT. He's sort of the business brain, if you will, to Ray Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil is often referred to as a living Thomas Edison. He has invented all kinds of stuff from the time he was a teenager. He's currently the director of engineering at Google, but that's understating who he is and what he does. He's the greatest mathematician in a century or more. What he's really good at is understanding the math behind an exponential growth curve and then making predictions about the behavior of whatever that is when it hits that knee of the curve, when it hits the turn and goes skyward, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. And so his prediction, his accuracy rate of his predictions is remarkable. He has somewhere around 180, 190 documented predictions, and he has an 89% accuracy rate. And of the 11% that he's been wrong, he's actually been right. He's just been off by a couple months to a year in the time frame that he assigned to that prediction. And so effectively the guy has been right on everything that he's publicly stated, which is phenomenal. And some of the stuff that he's stated is so radically hard to comprehend that many think he's a nut job as much as he is a brilliant person. So spending 3 days with these two guys, I can just tell you, and 250 people from around the world that were vetted and invited and selected. I'm not quite sure how I got there, but I'm glad I did. SIOR helped pay my way, so Richard, thank you for that. What I'm going to share with you from here really stems from those couple of days. So Peter said the only constant is change, and the rate of change is increasing. I think we can all pretty much agree on that one. Here's what Ray had to say about it. And this is the one that really set me back a bit. Time is now compressed. 100 years is no longer 100 years. We won't experience 100 years of progress in this century. It will be more like 20,000 years, 20,000, based on today's rate of accelerated progress. And by the way, that's still accelerating. So by the end of the century, it'd be closer to 40,000 years or 50,000 years. So try to imagine in the entire recorded history of man accomplishing 50,000 years or 20,000 years worth of stuff in just 100 years time, because we're living it and it's already happening. And that's how far out there Ray is with his thoughts. So what's the underlying math behind all this? Hard to argue with a fundamentally flawless math, and flawless math in this instance is Moore's law. How many of you are familiar with Moore's law? A little bit, probably, right? So the premise is that since 1958, so for about the last 60 years, computing power and price performance doubles approximately 18 to 24 months. So using an average of 20 months, that means we've had 30 iterations, which is an exponential growth rate. And I will show you that in a curve in a minute, but I'll talk about exponential now because just one or two more turns of Moore's law will turn the world upside down. And that's why we're here talking about this stuff. It's extreme and it's exponential. So what do you compare exponential to? You compare it to linear, right? Rent growth, 3% a year, inflation, 3%, that's linear. Exponential, or let me give it to you in the form of what's on the screen. 30 linear steps, you'll go 30 meters, one meter at a time. But if you take 30 exponential steps, you've gone 1 billion meters. Okay, that's exponential. 50 folds of I don't have a piece of paper to show you. 50 folds of a normal 0.135 millimeter standard piece of paper. If you fold it and fold it again and fold it again, you fold it 50 times, you have enough to go from the Earth to the sun. It's exponential. Okay, it's not linear. Computers today are exponential. They're 138,000 times, 138,000 times more powerful than they were less than 20 years ago, and yet they're still accelerating. Okay, that's what happens when exponential is applied in the form of Moore's law. Unfortunately, Moore's law will peter out. Smaller, smaller, and smaller becomes subatomic. It's unsustainable at some point, probably soon. So what Ray Kurzweil was talking about was what he calls the law of accelerating returns. This is something you can Google and look into a little bit more if you'd like. First we had electromechanical, then we had the vacuum tube, right? Then we had the relay, smaller, faster. Then we had transistors, smaller, faster. Then we had integrated circuits, which is where we are today. And those integrated circuits are getting smaller and faster and smaller and faster. And we're carrying around stronger, more powerful computing power with every passing moment in time, right? But it's unsustainable. We just agreed on that. So what comes next? There is a sixth iteration. Nobody knows for sure what it will be. Nobody. But the probability is that it's quantum computing. How many people know what differentiates high performance computing from quantum computing? Anybody? Do you know what a qubit is? You're going to want to know what a qubit is. Today's computing power, digital anything relies on ones and zeros in random sequences, right? And that's how we transform something from analog into digital. What qubits do, what quantum computing does, is they take ones and zeros and 1 zeros. And simply by inserting the 1 zeros into the equation, it becomes exponential. It's faster, it's smaller, it uses less power, And now, I'll jump ahead in my own presentation, when you take one quantum computing computer and network it together with another and another and another, hundreds, thousands, millions, because you could, right? And then you add a layer of artificial intelligence, self-learning to it, you can solve a problem in a minute or an hour in a day that was previously unsolvable to man, and certainly if it was solvable, would have taken centuries. So quantum computing is a really big deal, and it's likely to supplant Moore's Law at some point in our lifetimes, probably pretty soon. But right now, let's just focus on the last two iterations, the next two iterations of Moore's Law before it peters out, because that's where we are today, and it's where we can benefit or learn. So here's what it looks like. On the left, you can see linear versus exponential. The left part of the curve is interesting, right? It looks the same. It's called deceptive part of the curve. It's deception. And bad decisions get made there before the curve turns, right? And it puts people out of business, like Blockbuster, like Kodak. I'll show you a slide on that in a second. Then you hit the knee of the curve, and then you go skyward. Notice the last two dots, right? Same as the first two dots, but look at the distance it covers. It's exponential. And that's what I'm showing you on the right side. Because look where 2015 is on the graph on the right. We're talking about the next 36 to 48 months. 2 more turns of Moore's Law, and everything has changed for us. Everything. Everything. This is the same curve, Internet of Things superimposed upon it. Follows the exact same curve. We're well on our way to 50 billion devices by 2020, which the last time I checked is only a few years from now. Okay? We're well on our way. It's irreversible at this point. Probably beats 50 billion. That's probably a conservative estimate at this point, all because of Moore's Law. Kodak failed to follow Moore's Law. They invented the digital camera, put it in the closet, and continued to sell film. Why? Because on the deceptive part of the curve, they performed the same. But digital was more expensive for them. And you can see what a monumental mistake they said that they made. They didn't follow the curve. They didn't understand the curve, so they weren't able to follow it. Don't get Kodak. So, final word on Moore's Law, so I can move on. Everything will be obsolete in 10 years, and I mean everything. Jerry Zucker says he'll be obsolete in 10 years. I will be obsolete in 10 years. You'll make your own judgments about yourselves. We're all facing change on a magnitude, on an order of magnitude that we've never experienced before. So it's not like when fax machines came and we adjusted. And it's not like when internet came and we adjusted. It's not like cell phones and we adjusted. This is everything all at one time, all 10 or 100 times more potent, more powerful than we've ever experienced, and all at one time. So it's really a radical amount of change. And that's the big deal about it. That's why it's transformational and not just incremental. So let's talk about the first wave, because it's mostly here. I mean, this is really stuff that will become mainstream pretty darn quickly, next 3 to 5 years. How many people understand the harnessing of big data and the ability to transform it into usable, actionable, what we'll call small data, right? We all have talked about it. We're all doing it on some level. We're all going to do more of it. Effectively, it's already here. This is a $200 billion industry in just the next 2 years, from nothing a few years ago. Automation, robotics, I don't know if you like my icons, but they sort of go together and end up manifesting themselves in the form of Internet of Things. Everybody heard of Internet of Things at this point, right? That's just a stepping stone to something much greater. It's a stepping stone to the Internet of Everything, and I'll talk about that a little later. But right now, we're still trying to figure out this Internet of Things, and it's largely driven by automation, networks, sensor technology, right, which has come down to a price point where you can put it everywhere. It's effectively disposable, okay? And it can transmit information wirelessly in huge quantities. Drones. We all know the story of drones a little. But drones are relentless in what their capability are and where their price points are, and the FAA is starting to catch up with us on what we want to do with them. That's an authentic picture of, I know you can't see it, but 7-Eleven making a delivery via drone. Anybody here from San Francisco? Anybody by chance? So the 49ers at their home games this year have 1 hour, Amazon has 1 hour guaranteed drone delivery to 49er tailgaters. So if you run out of buns or cups or beers or plates and you're tailgating, Go on your phone, place your order. A drone with a designated drop zone in the tailgate area will deliver to you right now, today, this season, whatever it is that you just ordered. Guaranteed 1 hour. So it's already here, okay? On the lower left, that's a 3D printer. We'll talk about that. 3D printers will actually give way at some point to 4D printing. Anybody know what that is? 4D printing is a 3D printed object that has got smart technology integrated into it and is pre-programmed at some future date to turn itself into yet something new or different. So for a while it serves as this, but at some point in the future it will serve as that. And you can program that in. Pretty interesting stuff. You see the gentleman in the middle on the lower level, virtual reality, augmented reality. Some of us are showing our properties that way due to the extreme photo mapping that's already out there, right? We can capture from drones and from high quality cameras and satellites. We can photo map a world cost effectively in a way we've never been able to do before. And that's got huge upside for those of us in the real estate business. Where are we storing this stuff? Yeah, go ahead.
What is photo mapping?
Photo mapping is the systematic mapping of the world using all of these digital camera, digital imagery tools. Right? So rather than standing outside of a building and taking a picture, now we're sending the drone up and we're videoing it and we're thermographically imaging where it's leaking heat. Right? We can use a drone to see that. Okay? We can video for miles around. We can send the drone out of line of sight, bring it back, capture what it brought for us. We can use the satellites to hone in. We can bring it all together, one place, one time. Okay? At this A360 conference I was at, and it's a little bit of a departure, but since you asked the question, they had this camera called a Luna, L-U-N-A. It's not on the market yet. Do you know it? You're shaking your head. So they had a prototype there, and it looks like a little Christmas ornament. And what they were touting is that with the press of a button, it captures 380 degrees, which is more than one full time around, at 4K quality, accurate to 1 millimeter. Okay, so I said to the guy, so I could put this in an Amazon warehouse, 1 million square feet, press the button, it's going to capture the entire room, accurate to 1 millimeter, and give me 4K quality, and I can now use that to market that space. He said, exactly. And I said, how much for the camera? And he said, $299, $300. But for the show, you're here, we're going to give it to you because you're a beta tester. We're going to give it to you for $199. Just so you know, I bought one on the spot. I figured I couldn't lose for the $200. They have not delivered it. It hasn't shown up. I don't know how it works yet. I'll tell you in my next presentation. So don't rush out and buy one yet, but think of the possibilities when stuff like that becomes mainstream and affordable for all of us, regardless of where you play in real estate or anywhere else, construction, property management. All those things are changing because of this stuff. Where are we putting all this stuff, right? Putting it into the cloud. The cloud is growing at 50% a year. Okay, what happens when the cloud goes down, by the way? We're all out of business till it comes back up. Sort of an Achilles heel for the moment, isn't it? And who knows what the last thing is, because I'm going to talk about this a lot. This is where I'm kind of freaked out right now personally. Cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is easily the biggest Achilles heel of all of us and all of this stuff. We're not ready for any number of major incidents to occur, and we can expect them. I'm of course rooting like you are against them, but you can assume they're coming because that's where we're weak. I'll leave it at that. Actually, yeah, I know you've been raising your hand. Go ahead.
Can you give us an example
Of the 4D? I can. The one I saw was a crate, right? A 3D printed crate that transformed itself into a shelving unit and a planter. That's a primitive early version use, right? But when its utility as a crate is done, or you used it as a crate, now you press the button and it completely transforms itself into a different use. That's a very simplistic use. 4D printing's not in the next 3 to 5 years where 3D printing is, but it was the perfect opportunity for me to sort of bridge the gap and at least put it on your radar. If you get this presentation and you click on that picture, it's hyperlinked to everything you ever wanted to know about 4D printing. that's out there on the internet as of today, just by the way. There's a guy named Martin Gruenberg, who is the chair of the FDIC. And I don't know that he's necessarily a household name, but NAR had a lunch in Washington, D.C. about a year ago, and I was lucky enough to be at it. And he was the speaker at the lunch. And there was only about a dozen of us. It was almost like this. It was a fairly intimate gathering of folks. And he talked us through what happened in 2008 in the financial meltdown, because he was the chair of the FDIC at the time. And he said some really scary things about they were just sort of trying stuff. They really didn't know what was going to work and what wasn't, and how close we were to global meltdown. And we were sort of going, wow, what did you do to prevent that from ever happening again? And he told us all the things they've done, and we said, what's the weak link to all this stuff? And he said, it's cybersecurity. I have a team of 300 people, and every single day since that happened, we come to work going, what have we done to close that cybersecurity loophole? And when he said, we're just not there. Everything's at risk. Infrastructure, banking system, security documents, bridges, tunnels, lights, internet. It's all vulnerable right now. And we're just seeing little bits and pieces, trial and error from people, bad guys who want to do harm to us. And that's likely to be where it occurs. It's likely to be where the next war occurs. It won't necessarily be hand-to-hand, person-to-person combat. It will likely be there, and that's why I'm really raving about it, and you'll hear a little bit more about it later. It's where we need to focus for the time being, or none of this is going to matter. So don't believe me. Read the headlines. It's already here. UPS believes you're going to go to a UPS store, 3D print what you need, and ship it from there. They're getting into 3D printing. You can now 3D print proteins. How many people knew that? There's a store in Sweden where you can only buy candy that's 3D printed. Okay? So already here in little bits and pieces, but inside of 5 years, we're all going to be eating 3D printed food and believing that it tastes good, looks good, and we're enjoying it. It's hard for me to believe that. Okay? It's a leap of faith, but I'm telling you it's coming. I believe it's coming. In Nevada, they're working on personal transport drones. So they've already been FAA approved. Now they just need takeoff and landing spots. Okay? So Las Vegas wants to drone you from point to point so that you don't have to walk or risk crossing the street in the traffic that they have there. All the routers in the room, you see that one right there with the blue light on the back wall? That's a Cisco router. It's getting smarter by the minute because it has IBM Watson artificial intelligence built into it. It knows more about us than we know about it, and it's learning all the time and getting better, and it's transmitting that data to the other devices that it's connected to, which in turn are transmitting that data and that information, that learning to others. Already here, okay? Here's what it looks like by the numbers. It's staggering. I'll give you a minute to absorb all that. I don't want to dwell on it so I can move through some of this other stuff, but it's staggering, and this is just the next couple years. It's hard to comprehend these numbers. And this guy's light, by the way, on the 25 billion embedded in intelligent systems. He's way light. So I'm going to show you a video real quick of a 3D printed office building. That's right, an office building. This is in Dubai. It already exists. It's only about 54 seconds. So let's get this cranked up and see what you think. All right, so who wants to venture a guess what that cost?
How many square feet?
10,000 feet. And it's the government's tourist office, by the way. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me get out of this for you. Sorry.
You
You don't want to see this commercial, I don't think.
To get 60 sheets of drywall
Skip
in a
ad. Let's start with that. All right. Sorry about that. Close that for you. Go back to the presentation. 10,000 feet, $140,000. Took 6 weeks, and it's made up of a series of different composites, which is the future of materials, and I'll talk about that briefly in a minute if you'll bear with me. There's all these new compounds, and some of them are nanotechnology and biotechnology. They're living, breathing materials that are designed to do things differently. Some are graphene-based, some are conductive, some have solar built in. Radical changes coming to the residential and the commercial world because of this stuff. I can show you other things too, but I really wanted to show you that one because it was more germane to the commercial real estate realm than anything else I've been able to find so far. Okay? $140,000. I don't know. It's a broker qualifying me, and you're doing a good job. I don't know. So while you comprehend all that, I'm going to move on. I like this quote because it reminds me of being a kid watching the Jetsons, seeing what was on that cartoon, mind you, geared to kids. And yet, it seems like we're working aggressively towards fulfilling those visions, and not just that. Minority Report. Anybody seen Minority Report, that movie? I love that movie, right? So in that movie, Tom Cruise puts on these special gloves, and he has all these 3D screens that he throws out in front of him, and he moves this one away, and he pulls this one in, and he enlarges it, and then he throws that one away, right? Do you remember him doing all that? I actually got to do that at this conference. I was using VR goggles that were 3D in nature with touch. And so there was nothing there, nothing, yet I was touching it, moving it, pulling this in, pushing this away, expanding this, spinning this, just like in that movie. So we shape our tools, and guess what happens? Our tools shape us. Great quote. Here's the second wave. It's a little bit harder to predict, so I'm giving myself a little bit more latitude in terms of 5 to 15 years, but most of this I believe is 5 to 10. Autonomous vehicles, I'll just start there. It's already here, it's already now. The problem is the regulation, the codes, the laws, the insurance, the legal, isn't caught up to the technology. The technology is absolutely ready for mainstream, widespread, cost-effective deployment. Death rate would plummet. Carbon emissions would plummet. Traffic would plummet. Your cost to transportation plummet. But the government is saying we're not ready, and we haven't written the codes or laws yet, and they're not reciprocal from town to town, county to county, state to state. So it's got a ways to go. That's why it wasn't in the first wave. But it should be. It could be. The big deal here is, through the power of Moore's Law, 2 more iterations, we now have enough computing power here to equal a brain for under $1,000. It means it's affordable to virtually anyone in the world with a smartphone, which, by the way, is just about everybody. Layer on top of it, ubiquitous, networked, unlimited quantum computing, 24/7 learning, networked. And all of a sudden, what do you get? You get Internet of Things becomes Internet of everything. Internet of stuff, as I like to say. Your clothes, okay? The chairs, the streets that you walk in. They're predicting that street controls, traffic lights, stop signs, you don't need them anymore because you've got smart vehicles and smart streets and smart intersections, all working together in real time, okay? So we talked about autonomous vehicles. Most things are moving to on-demand consumption, so transportation or mobility as a service. And just as an aside, I took this for a trial run on Monday. I gave the keynote speech at a different kind of a venue for me anyways. I was at the National Academy of Sciences Transportation Research Board, where I assumed that every person that was there way, way, way smarter than me, and I'm not just kidding. I mean, this was federal government and academia from all over North America. And I was a little nervous to have this conversation with them, knowing that they knew more about it than I knew about it. And they all agree on this point. It is transportation and mobility and ride sharing on demand. If you're 10 years old or under, you're unlikely to learn how to drive. You'll never have a driver's license, and you'll never own a car. If you're a newborn, the only thing you're ever going to know is ride sharing and self-driving autonomous vehicles. period, end of story. They all believe it, and they're all working towards that reality. Continuing on with this, though, following the power of the computing power and all the things that you layer on top of it, you end up with 3D printed everything. The vision that was painted for us by Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis is one where you wake up in the morning, you stand in front of your smart mirror, you get scanned, your clothes are 3D printed for you, purposeful for that day, whatever you're doing, wherever you're going. At the end of the day, you simply recycle the clothes and recycle and start the sequence again the next day. So that's a major disruption to shopping. Sorry about that, folks. Now, we'll still shop for something somewhere, somehow, but clothes shopping, closets, could you imagine if your closet was obsolete? You didn't need all those shoes, you just 3D print them when you need them, and then you recycle them? That's what we're headed towards, according to all these brainiacs. Blockchain, this is one that we could spend an hour talking on. I'm not going to go deep on it, but please understand that blockchain is a permanent, forever, distributed digital ledger of a transaction. So it's got a level of security because it's distributed across 1 million computers that makes it impossible to get rid of. It never goes away, so it's forensic forever, and it's impossible to crack the security on it. And consequently, Bitcoin, digital currency, things like that ride on it now. But what about real estate transactions? Isn't it probable, big and small, simple and complex, they all become blockchain transactions at some point, and that disrupts what many of us in the room do. Again, not this year, not next year, but not that far away, before the end of the next 10-year lease. Let's leave it there. I don't have time to get into biotech and nanotech and CRISPR, gene therapy, but these all will factor in, right? The ability to harness the power of nanotechnology and make things atomic. It makes them ingestible. It makes people and robots potentially able to merge. It's a concept I don't care for much, but Ray Kurzweil is absolutely certain it's going to happen. I'll talk about that in the next slide. And the big one for me, abundant low-cost energy. What these guys were talking about was there's enough raw solar power hitting the Earth every day. I believe the statistic they said was 5,000% more energy hits the Earth every day than could possibly be consumed by every human being on Earth. And that's just in a random day. So if we could ever harness the power of that, why don't we need petroleum? Why don't we need gas? Why do we need oil? And so they're predicting what they called a laughable, was their word, laughable abundance of energy, which will drive the price point down to effectively nothing. Will we pay something for it? Probably. But there'll be so much of it, it will be commoditized to a point where we have unlimited computing power and unlimited power. And unlimited connectivity with everybody in the world. And what can we do with that raw, sheer power? It's never been done before, so nobody really knows what we could do with it. And that's why this is a really big deal. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you said that basically government regulations stop all this from happening at the pace that it should be happening, and that you're a fan of smart cities. Is there a place in the world where it's a no holds bar, let's just do this?
There's no question, because I'll give you an example. I've been to Korea a couple times. Korea and Japan too are largely mountainous, rocky terrain where you don't have huge expanses of land to spread out and build on. And you also don't have a tremendous amount of the natural resources for exportation, right? To grow your domestic product and to self-fund your social services to support your citizens. And so they can really only build on the ring of effectively their islands, but of their land, okay? So how does Korea or Japan play on the world stage in the future? The government there in 2002 or 2003, and I visited in 2004 and 2005, gave highest speed known to man at the time, internet, to every one of their citizens for free, and then went through a big campaign of, hey, get together with your friends, your neighbors, your peers, collaborate, innovate, and let's take the world by storm with our intellect, because that is our gross export, right? That's how we play on the world stage. And that's really the answer to your question, right? There are places in the world that are doing it differently according to different business models. There's no question about it. And if you do want to experience the most digital per capita population in the world, go to Seoul, South Korea. and watch what's going on there. In 2004, when I was there, they were all walking around like this. And we're going, what are they doing? And our host said, oh, well, they're texting each other. And we said, that is the dumbest thing I have ever seen. Why would you text somebody when you could just call them? And here we are, right? Text dominates our life. I text you faster than I'd ever call you at this point, right? We saw an older woman on the top of a 16-story building, which was a soccer field on top of a high school, which was on top of a transit station, which was on top of a distribution center, okay? Because that's what they have to do there. And she was doing this. And we're going, what is that? She's live streaming it to somebody. We're like, it's 2004. There's not enough bandwidth and compression technology for that. It's impossible. Oh yeah, there is. There was then. We're just starting to mainstream it here now. So it really is the most, I could go on and on about the Coke machines and the bus fares and what we saw there. But you couldn't imagine. We went over there thinking we're going to see some smart buildings, and we saw that and went, okay, we're totally getting it wrong here. Different business model here, right? So, don't believe me? Check out the headlines. I mean, this is from Wall Street Journal and MSNBC and CNBC and Washington Post. And I mean, this is authentic stuff, guys, that's really happening. Look at the first headline, 80 million US jobs at risk from automation. Every job's at risk, effectively every job's at risk. Not this year, but soon, sooner than you want it to be, okay? You can do nothing and wait till it happens, or you can get ahead of the curve. That's just how I feel about it. Singapore is going to have driverless taxis on the road by Christmas this year. Norway has banned all petroleum-powered cars by 2025, and Germany just trumped them by banning all combustion engine vehicles by 2025. Okay? So don't believe me. Check it for yourself. Readjust your thinking, and catch up to me. You'll be glad you did. I can't go through all these, but you can see for yourself. There's some real crazy stuff already happening. This is a little further away, but happening nonetheless. So how many people saw this news about 2 weeks ago? I'll play this video for you. Otto, which is a self-driving autonomous trucking company, which is now owned by Uber, partnered with Budweiser to drive 120 miles driverlessly to make a beer delivery. So this is a pretty interesting little video. So there's no sound until after the word scroll. There you go. This happened about 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's already happened, though, past tense.
I got into truck driving in 2007. I like to travel the country. That's one of the reasons drivers get into the industry. They want to see the country. It's a big, beautiful place.
Anheuser-Busch is the largest brewer in the United States. We ship over 1.2 million truckloads each year. We are always looking for new innovations in technology. Otto's trucks are the next area of transportation innovation.
The driver would still be involved with the pickup, loading the freight, making sure it's secure in the back of the vehicle. And then once you're on the interstate, one switch and it's driving itself down the road.
How freaky is that? How freaky is that?
Well, Otto's technology is all about making the road safer. It's like a train on software rails. And so when you will see a vehicle driving with nobody in it,
There's nobody there. There's nobody home.
Get in a collision.
I proclaimed to one of the technicians, I said, I don't think I could have done that better myself. That was an interesting moment.
We knew we wanted an iconic American brand that was passionate about their products. Budweiser was a perfect partner. For me, I think the most important things that computers are going to do in the next 10 years is drive trucks and cars.
Yeah, well, I saw them in there.
To be at the forefront of that.
I think you get the idea. Crazy, right? Crazy. It's already here, and that's really what's disturbing about it. I run the industrial division of Newmark. I have 405 industrial brokers generating $200 million of gross revenue to Newmark and our parent company, Cantor Fitzgerald, and that is going to disrupt those brokers and our company more than just about anything I can think of. More than drones, more than 3D printing, although those will be factors too. But that is really where we're studying and really where we're focused. How many people know Hyperloop? You must have heard something about Hyperloop. Hyperloop is a new form of high-speed transportation that would allow you, for instance, to live in Los Angeles, commute to San Francisco for lunch in under 30 minutes, and be back at work by 1:30. So just think now of the possibilities. It's already here. It's already being tested. Let me play this. This is minute 49 on Hyperloop. Dubai is really, by the way, to your point about where else in the world there's Dubai is way ahead of us on all these things, by the way, all of them. Already, I was going to ask the question, is there anybody in the audience who has a 3D printed body part? Because when in bigger crowds, there's always somebody who already does.
Suddenly, you can live in a forest, take the Hyperloop, go into work every day, and it's only going to take 10 minutes. Suddenly you spread out the possibilities for everybody to live where they want, by the sea, by the water, in the forest, wherever. My name is Jakob Lange. I'm a partner at Big and a director for Big Ideas, which is this sort of experimental department that takes care of the most technical, challenging projects within our company. We're also helping formulate the grand vision for what the Hyperloop could be, making sure that we don't close any doors, that we keep as many of them open. The system becomes flexible to change. We are not creating architecture that confuses the customer or that creates unnecessary steps in the process of actually boarding one of these pods. We're not waiting for new technology like carbon nanofibers or anything in order to do this. We have everything we need to do, and it's a matter of doing it in the best possible way. The people living here, they're used to that everything is created around them while they are growing up. And making the Hyperloop here would be sort of a very natural step in that sort of evolution of this place, the city and the region. We are in a new time now where you can actually develop a new transportation system in very, very few years and change the world.
Coming soon to a city near you.
This is about creating a love for the new possibility.
Right? Craziness. I've taken the maglev train in Shanghai, which is about 45 miles outside of the city center of Shanghai. And it goes about 350, 360 miles an hour at its peak speed. And it takes a taxi ride that takes an hour, 15 minutes down to a 12-minute ride. And it really could be an 8-minute ride because they have slow zones near each station. So they don't hit peak speed except for about 6 minutes. And you look out the window and your eyeballs cannot fixate on anything. It's just a blur. And this is 3 times faster. It's crazy. Yeah, they're testing it in Nevada right now, and the first one in the United States will be Los Angeles to San Francisco. And so the CEO of Hyperloop was one of the speakers at this event I was at with Peter and Ray, and he came up, he got a big introduction from Peter Diamandis, and he said, and here's the craziest thing of all. You're going to be able to go from Los Angeles to San Francisco in 30 minutes. And everybody in the audience was kind of gasping at that. It was really the first exposure we had to it. And he came up on stage and he said, actually, Peter, I'm sorry to do this to you, but you're wrong. And Peter's like, what are you talking about? He goes, it's actually 29 minutes. Exactly. There you have it. There you have it. All right, so let me move through some of this stuff. This is where it gets crazy. I'll let you all make your own judgments about what and when. But remember, this is coming from Ray Kurzweil, a guy who effectively has never been wrong about a public prediction that he's ever made. He's saying in the 2040s, and he's particular, by the way, he's saying September or October of 2045, he is predicting the world irreversibly goes into a new age of singularity where machines and humans actually irreversibly merge into one. He calls that the singularity. Okay? It's hard. It disturbs me. I don't like to think about it, I'll be honest with you. But yet, I have a hard time betting against the man who's been right his whole life. Computers are going to get smaller. Nanotechnology, biotechnology will kick in. And we'll be able to put molecular level computing power into our brains and connect it into our bodies and into our exoskeletons and connect it to the cloud and to other networking and to other people and to other devices. And that becomes what he calls the singularity. So convergence, anytime, anything, anytime, anywhere. At this point in time, again, I'm going to take a leap of faith and say in all of our lifetimes, imagine that this little smartphone, and probably will, by the way, will be here is their prediction. It really won't be here. But either way, $1,000 gets you enough computing power to be 1 billion times more intelligent than every human being on Earth combined, which means everybody can afford it. Unprecedented in recorded history. Everything becomes a service. You want the best? Go get it. Pay for it by the minute, by the hour. Set it aside. Go get the best of this. It's everything is a service. Print to suit, like we talked about. This is something Elon Musk said, another visionary, who, by the way, was supposed to be at this event and didn't show up, and I was very disappointed about that. I really wanted to meet Elon Musk. He says, by about 2045, simulated reality will be completely indistinguishable from reality. You won't know which world you're living in. I don't know. That doesn't sound that good to me. Yet they're spinning it as it's going to be abundant and it's going to be great and there's going to be all this opportunity. Listen, in times of great turbulence, right, great fortunes are made. So I do believe there's a robust future out there for all of us if we can adapt and adjust. But that one really, like True Recall. Remember that movie, Ryan? I don't know. Tough one. What happens when you have all this abundance and all this turbulence? You have unexpected consequences. Nobody, not even Ray Kurzweil, could accurately predict all the other things that this will bring with it. I don't think anybody could possibly do that. Here's what's interesting. Scale, which almost always wins, probably doesn't win as often. It may not win even at a 50% rate anymore. Because if you put all this computing power and all this free power in the hands of every person in the world, what could one person halfway around the world accomplish? As opposed to a corporation that had the same tools. Profound implications. You're going to see borders change. I'm sorry, but I do think countries will come and go over this. I think middle class is under siege. I think there'll be the haves and the have-nots. We actually spend a lot of time talking about that. They're predicting life expectancy to soar as they first eliminate infectious disease and eventually eliminate cancer, all cancer. And by the way, he has a very specific prediction date on those two things, which is here in the presentation. You can go online and see that for yourself. But the prediction is people will live to 150 or beyond. And the prediction is that they can eradicate all infectious disease and all cancers in our lifetimes. Yes. For every year you age, you'll be able to add a year to your life, and that's how you're going to effectively get to 150. Couple that now with nanotechnology and nanotherapy, okay, and CRISPR gene technology, which can isolate and target the aging gene, okay, or the genome that deals with aging and reverse it or stall it. You can pre-design your babies, okay? I think it's a disturbing thought. I think one of the great miracles of life, I have 2 kids, I think is not knowing what you're going to have and you know, and dealing with all the great things that comes with that. So to me, it's not all that great, but yet I'm committed to the reality it's coming, right? How big do you want it to be? What color hair? What color eyes, right? You can design all that. It's already here. And that's what's disturbing about it. Why do you think Elon Musk and Richard Branson and Jeff Bezos, why are they all exploring out of space? Anybody given that any thought? Right? Because we're at risk of turning loose artificial intelligence and gene therapy and gene mutation and cyber security on a level that's incomprehensible and affordable to every single person on Earth, including the good guys and the bad guys. And then what happens? Where are we going to go from there? Okay, so I'm sorry to sound alarmist or extremist. I know it's probably coming across that way. I'll let you make up your own minds on how much of this stuff really comes to pass, but you can see a path to it, can't you? I mean, at this point, yikes. So what are the X factors? Certainly politics. You were asking about tech change versus political change. This is pretty much the slide that there should be a fifth curve on there that shows the reality, which is much closer to political change than it is to technology change, right? What else could happen? Well, what's the cost of capital? Is it even accessible? How many times does David beat Goliath? What's the legal precedence? We're in the new Wild West, right? What are the data standards? If it's not ubiquitous, it's not going to work globally. So just because you have a great idea, if it doesn't port to other parts of the world, not going to work. So all kinds of impacts here. And then the day came when it was harder to stay the same than it was to change, right? That's what this says. I love this quote. It's about change management. And that's why this quote is in here. So this is sort of wrapping it up for you. Inefficiencies are systematically going away. Any inefficient market is under siege. Why is automobiles and vehicular mobility under siege right now? Anybody know? Because 94% of all vehicles on the road are one person, one vehicle. That's about as inefficient as it could possibly be. And it's ripe for disruption. Real estate, healthcare, banking. That's what they're talking about being ripe for disruption. And that's why we're talking about this. Here's the big takeaway for me. I can't look at last year's budget and use it to predict accurately how to budget for next year anymore. That used to be the way to do it, right? You look at last year's, you made some adjustments, and here's the budget. It doesn't work that way anymore. Past results no longer are a reliable predictor because past results were at this part of the curve, and now we're on this part of the curve. Okay? That's getting Kodak'd. If you can't get your stuff out of the cloud like we talked about, we have a problem. So they need faster speeds and more reliable connectivity, and they're inventing that as we speak. Li-Fi is like Wi-Fi, but it's at the speed of light rather than the speed of sound. So Wi-Fi is a radio wave. Li-Fi is at the speed of light. Like I said, WiGig is also known as 5G. Probably be available for you to purchase from your phone carrier of choice in a year or so. 100 times faster speeds than you currently have now. You can download an entire 2-hour movie to your phone in about 1 second. Think about it, okay? By the way, for the brokers in the room or the owners or the investors, here's a tip. Data centers aren't going anywhere. The cloud's growing at 50% a year, and a cloud is driven by a piece of real estate called a data center or a mission-critical building. Okay, we're woefully underserved on data centers for that reason. So huge growth opportunity for real estate. Photo mapping we talked about. I think for real estate we're going to see shrinking space allocations, but higher utilization rates. So what's an office building, by the way? What's the vacancy or occupancy rate of an office building really? Even if it's 100% occupied, it's only 100% occupied between 9 and 5, which means it's really only 1/3 occupied and 2/3 not occupied. Is that efficient or inefficient? Is it ripe for change? I think it is. Okay, that's true with a lot of the real estate that we're still building and still consuming. So ripe for change. Transportation as a service, we'll pay a premium for flexibility. I think the big holdback, like I said, is zoning, entitlements, laws, ability to pay for it. So did anybody think a new wave of taxes? Not that I'm advocating for it, not that I want it, but who's paying for this, do you think? It's probably us on some level, right? Buildings will be redesigned around this new paradigm. I don't want to spend too much time going into the redesign, but industrial buildings will have drone docks. They'll have cross drives. They'll have their own ability to generate their own power, so they never go down. They'll have redundant infrastructure. The FAR will change. Parking lots will not be an amenity, but rather a tax burden. Hard to believe, okay? But we see that coming. We see inventory and delivery disruption, battle for the last mile. So 50% of the supply chain cost is in the last mile. That's inefficient. So what's under attack? The last mile, right? And 3D printing is going to have a lot to say about that last mile. So you're going to order it, they're going to 3D print it, and then it's available for you to pick it up or deliver to you same day. How many people have gone to like an RH Gallery or Restoration Hardware is their new line? It's an experience. It's not really a retail store. You can buy stuff there, but it's not about the ability to buy stuff. It's about the ability to experience. They're predicting that industrial and retail will be merging as asset classes. And the reason is fulfillment will come from the warehouse or the distribution center. The purchase will either take place online or on phone, or because you went to one of these experience centers. So DICE would make it different, inspiring. It would have a community aspect to it, right? And it would be an experience. That's what DICE is. If it doesn't have DICE, if you're in the retail business and if it doesn't have DICE, and a lot of it, don't do it. Run the other way. It doesn't have shelf life. I'm just going to tell you right now. New construction materials, like we talked about. All the site selection today is about labor and access to labor. How many people have heard there's a truck driver shortage? Truck driver shortage. Have you heard that, right? Who's graduating from college wanting to be a truck driver? Effectively nobody, okay? It's a big problem today, and it will be a problem for a couple years. But do you really think it's a problem forever? I don't, okay? It's going to change the site selection dynamics. That, in turn, is going to change valuations. You're going to see clusters, okay? If you're going to take the time to hyperloop there better be a lot of stuff there for you, or you're not going there. So clusters, competing super regions, Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee, St. Louis. Let's get together and promote our region, because I can go to any of those cities in 30 minutes now, okay? That's coming. CBDs, 30% is allocated to parking in any given downtown. But I don't need parking anymore. So what do I do with that 30%? How do I repurpose my garages and my street spaces? I can promise you City of Chicago is already working on it. I'm lucky enough to be on their Innovation Council, and I know it's already taking place. And if Chicago's talking about it, your city's talking about it too, I promise you. Blockchain, as we talked about, becomes a more efficient transaction process. That puts downward pressure on fees, right? That's a significant services disruption. We need new skills now to be able to stay in the business and continue to serve the way we serve. That puts a pressure on training and retraining, which I believe is a now event. I don't think it's a when it comes. I think when it comes is right now. I'm calling on SIOR and NAR and others to really think about what their role is in training and retraining. Because by the way, can I really turn to Newmark for the training, for the skills of the future when they're trying to replace me with robots and automation and blockchain? I don't think I can, okay? So maybe I can turn to my association or my trade industry organization. I think, like I said, we have to rethink our budgets. I think we have to accelerate our research, and we have the tools to do it. We can simulate and use algorithms to sift through the data to find things that human beings themselves wouldn't have found. We can outsource our research. We can do both and really accelerate it, because as I said, time is no longer the time that we're accustomed to. There's urgency that has never been here before. Even SIOR is looking at partnerships with people like MIT and IBM Watson to accelerate the learning curve on this stuff, to bring value proposition and benefit to our members. I don't think we're training enough STEM or urban planning folks to follow us and to guide us. And I really think we need to treat these guys like rock stars and promote these vocations. Or there won't be any NAR and there won't be any SIOR, because people won't be coming into our business. And they won't be planning these cities for us. And these cities will change. And of course, you know how I feel about cybersecurity. Speaking of cybersecurity, this is the last video I'll show you. It's 30 seconds. This is a BAE commercial. Pay very close attention to what they say.
I came as fast as I could. What's up? This isn't public yet. What isn't? We've been attacked. The network? When did this happen? Over the last 6 months. How did we miss it? We caught it, just not in time. Who? How? Not sure. Probably offshore. Foreign? Pros. What did they get? What didn't they get? I need to call Mike. Don't use your phone.
It's not just security, it's defense.
Right? Don't use your phone, it's been hacked too. What happens when that happens? Anybody doubt that cybersecurity is the Achilles heel for all of us? It really is. And we're not ready. We're putting all these networkable devices, these thermostats and these video cameras, and there's no security whatsoever in those. And they're easily hacked and brought together in aggregation and channeled to do all kinds of bad things to good people, and it's unfortunate. Last word on the mobility. I think the next big battleground, the next land grab, is actually air rights. It's airspace, right? As you have drones and flying taxis and Hyperloop and unmanned vehicles, things that can do vertical takeoff and landing that require these mini vertiports. We were talking about the airports before. You don't need the airports anymore. You need mini vertiports. Okay, it's it's not my word. It's what they're being called. But in whose airspace? Who said you could use my airspace? How can you prove it's yours? I think I'm going to buy it from you. In fact, I'm going to buy all your air rights. Think of the air rights over the railroad tracks. You think Burlington and Northern Santa Fe, owned by Warren Buffett, is it monetizable as something new? It is. It's going to reinvent railroads, okay? Long haul, straight lines, highways. So, do you know what air rights you have? Do you own any air rights? You probably do, but you probably don't know. I think it's the next big battleground. It's a wonderful opportunity for NAR and SIOR to help shape the conversation, and not just SIOR and NAR, any of our organizations. Let's partner right now with NASA and FAA and Department of Transportation and the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, and let's help them understand what's good for us. But we got to do it right now, or they're going to do it without us. And of course, there's all kinds of legal and insurance implications. We're going from that, folks, to that. That, couple years, to that. And that will be an albatross. That will be a nuisance, a burden, a cost center you don't want. Hard to believe, because right now we can't consume enough of it. Okay, so great news. Finish on an upbeat. It is not the strongest of the species that survive. It's not the most intelligent. It's those that can adapt to change, and that's us. Okay? Thank you very much for the opportunity to share this with you. As I promised you, there's all kinds of addendum in here, just so you can see what it is. I guess the last thought is I'll give the nod to Peter. It's up to us. It's up to us to shape it, right? This stuff is coming, but it's not techno-utopian. It's potentially abundant and full of opportunity, but it's up to us to shape it, and I hope that you're up to the challenge to doing just that. So thank you very much. It's okay? The question back here?
As exciting as all of this sounds, there were a couple of things that concern me. First of all,
It all concerns me, just so you know.
there's a severe lack of human touch.
Yes, there is.
And then a lot of this seems like the future of war. When you have unmanned cars, and that is all you have on the roads, that is what, if I was an evil person, I would say, I don't like America. I want every single one of those cars to crash in 10 minutes. I want every single unmanned airplane that's hauling 300 people to just fall out of the sky now. And all it takes is just hacking into the system. So that's the new warfare. You don't have any manual control. I mean, the truck driver was so excited to be reading the magazine.
Yeah. He gets the back end until they figure out the back end part.
There's not using the gifts that were given at birth to be that manual labor. So how is technology looking at addressing these? And I know the businesses don't care. They're looking at reducing payroll. So we get that. But how is this all being looked at?
Summarize your question.
It seems, her question is all of this is interesting, but seems very devoid of human interaction and full of opportunity for bad guys. Did I summarize it okay? It is. It is. So I told you on Monday, I was in Detroit at this National Academy of Sciences with people who honestly were way smarter than I am, and I was there to learn as much as I was to share, and we had this very debate about whose job it is to protect the public en masse. And half the room said it's private industry. It's the people putting the Ubers on the road to build the security in, to protect us, because it's their profit motive, okay? Half the room said, no. That's when it becomes the government's job to protect the citizens, because it's bigger than just Uber. It's about warfare and it's about safety for everybody. And there was no resolution to the conversation, but it was a fascinating back and forth. Whose job? And that's why the laws and the codes and the ordinances aren't anywhere near ready for the technology that really was already here and is getting better every passing day. And that's the dichotomy that we're all living with. So you've raised good points. I even asked, it was a room like this, and I went to that microphone and I said, hey, Ray, I got to ask you, if every job is under siege and inefficiencies systematically give way to hyper efficiencies, and everybody's out of work, what happens? And he said, I don't know if you've ever seen him, he kind of looks like Woody Allen, and he's very deadpan. He is not a humorous guy. And he says, well, first of all, the government will have to pay a stipend to everybody so they have spending power. That's coming. But more importantly, what do you like to do in your spare time? And I said, well, I like to golf. He goes, well, you're going to have a lot of time to work on your golf game and the arts and the humanities. And I was completely dissatisfied with that answer, but there is no answer. That's all we have for the time being, and the belief that in the history of recorded man, we've always adapted, and we'll adapt to this too. And we're innovative by nature, and we're dynamic. We're not singular in any way, and we will adapt, and we will thrive because we'll find new opportunities. But this is a game that everybody plays. So if some people want to be spectators, not an option. You're on the field and you're playing the game. You can play offense. You can get to work on it right now, start to figure it out, help shape the conversation. You can play defense. You can wait 10 years until it's mainstream, or 20 years, hope it doesn't happen, but then you'll play then. So nobody gets to sit this one out, and that's what's bugging me, and that's why I really feel like it's important to be up here sharing this with as many people. Will take the time to share it with me. And I hope you'll get on your soapboxes a little bit and share it a little bit with your schools, with your churches or your synagogues, in your workplace, wherever you can move lots of people. I'm stunned at how many people really don't know this stuff yet. Even at that National Academy of Sciences, I had about 50 requests for the presentation. I got invited by the mayor of New York's office. His chief of staff invited me to give the presentation to the mayor of New York. They don't have this information yet. Think about that. Think about that. It's hard for me to believe that's possible. So I know it's not a good answer, but your observations are spot on. But we're going to sort of figure it out together. Yeah, go ahead.
In your conversations with all these super intelligent people, do they have a fear that at some point artificial intelligence machines won't need humans?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. It dominates a lot of the conversation. The question was about artificial intelligence going rogue or simply eliminating. It doesn't even have to go rogue, right? Just simply eliminate us. There are some really smart people who are calling for the cessation, the stoppage of artificial intelligence for that very reason. Not going to stop at this point. It's already too globally widespread. So I don't see that happening, but there are a number of game theorists. Stephen Hawking was, one of the smartest people alive anywhere today or ever, saying stop right now. You don't understand what you're messing with. Stop. So it's again, these are the right questions to be asking when you experience this kind of material. But I don't see artificial intelligence going away. What we have to do is do the best of our ability to channel it. I read a story, like a parable, about two guys that were challenged by their company to do something very mundane, like I can't remember. They had to write a message on a blackboard 1 million times as punishment for doing something. And so they turned to the company computer and they taught the computer how to write it once, and then turned the artificial intelligence loose to write it the other 999,000 times, so they didn't have to. Right? Pretty mundane stuff right there. And it took the computer 30 days to learn to handwrite, and then it took it 15 days to do this, and it took it 10 days to do this, and then it realized it needed to go out onto the internet to gain a greater depth of knowledge, because it had expended all of its onboard knowledge that it had been programmed with. And so the computer deceived the scientists or the workers into giving it access to the internet and said, I just need 30 minutes and then you can turn me off again, that's all I need. And it went onto the internet and it downloaded all of the intellect of mankind effectively, okay? And began to mutate's the wrong word, it began to self-code using artificial intelligence of how to do all these things. And ended up, long story short, causing nuclear warfare and the end of the world as we know it today. All because it was programmed to accomplish this very mundane, repetitive mission of writing out these words over and over so the humans didn't have to. Okay, and I read this story and I could totally see that happen. It's like totally plausible. Okay, that's how scary this stuff is. And when you add quantum computing and networkability to the other supercomputers of the world, I don't know where it goes. I don't know. It's disturbing for me. Sorry, John. Go ahead.
That leaves out though the Internet of Things and the Internet of Stuff, which is really the failsafe in that. It's that there isn't one computer. There's an interconnection of all computers. And consequently and theoretically, of course, they would all keep watch over one another.
I don't know. Yeah, it's an interesting comment. The comment was, with distributed computing, no one computer can ever trump another. It's distributed across millions of computers. And so there's a natural checks and balances built in to that interoperability. Is that? Yeah. And I think there's some reality check to that. But the truth is nobody knows. Ray Kurzweil doesn't know. Okay, Stephen Hawking doesn't know. The President of the United States doesn't know. By the way, anybody see the Newsweek cover story about 6 months ago? And it was the 2020 election. And it had a politician next to a supercomputer. Okay? You can find that online. Why not? By the way, one of the things that they said, and you'll find this interesting on the medical side, if any of you ever go to the hospital and require serious surgery, it's going to be done by a robot, and you're going to beg for it to be done by a robot who has a higher level of precision and accuracy and speed, no emotion, no physical ailments, didn't just come off of a 14-hour shift, isn't getting divorced and is distracted at home, okay? You're going to beg for that computer, for that robotic operation rather than the human being. And that's in the next 3 to 5 years. In many cases, already the case. And that's what they're predicting.
I live in Huntsville, Alabama. We've got 38,000 acre parcel, second largest research park in the nation. Those companies get cyber attack attempts all the time.
They give it what?
They get cyber
Oh, so they get cyber attack now? Absolutely. It could, and it's a very good observation, actually. I mean, we may very well already be immersed in it on some level, and I think that's very plausible. I hope it's not the case, but if I woke up tomorrow and realized that that was the reality of it, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah. Anybody? Happy to chat more. It's really nice of you guys to spend some time with me. I know you really did have other choices, so thank you so much for being here.